People often say to me, I want a 5-axis machine. When you look at the job, it's not a 5-axis job. And they'll say, I'm going to future-proof. 5 years later, they're producing the same job on the same machine. You're trying to drive 5-axis when you don't need 5 axes. The fewer the axes, the fewer the problems.
Hello and welcome to another MTD podcast. I'm Paul Jones, the host of today's show and the founder of MTDCNC. Today's podcast is all about the launch of a new machine, the Heckert H65. Now, I'm joined by the Sales and Applications Engineering Director from Starrag, Lee Scott, and also Mark Dedman from MTDCNC. Firstly, we'll welcome our guest. Lee, how are you?
I'm extremely well. Thank you for asking us to join you today.
Now, it's quite interesting because you've just been doing a live show, haven't you, about this machine? So this is a little bit more relaxed. There's no pressure on this being lively, so you don't have to worry as much as you were an hour or so ago. But it went well. Went
extremely well, thank you.
Good. And you can actually watch that live feed on our YouTube channel and in fact on LinkedIn and Facebook, where we streamed that this morning. I'm also joined by Mark, who was participating in that live event as well. Mark, are you keeping well?
Yeah, very well. As you know, our diaries are absolutely packed. You're flying around the country, and hopefully it won't be long before we're flying to other countries. So yeah, good news.
Well, let's hope so. As restrictions lift. Let's start with actually, Lee, for you, because Starrag, you're very successful as a company in a lot of industries, but one of your big ones is aerospace. What's it been like for you in the last 16 months?
Well, it's interesting because the military aerospace projects continued and we've been successful in those areas. But of course, the anticipated rate ramp up of single aisle was decimated overnight. So, of course, that's had an effect on us all in terms of projected new business, in terms of just top-up orders that we would have anticipated last year. So aerospace was a hit, but luckily we were involved in other sectors as well, which has kept us buoyant.
And what's the news on the aerospace coming around the corner from what you're hearing?
It depends on who you speak to. I think the year that people are talking about the most, both in the engine and the structures market, is 2024 before we start seeing anything like pre-COVID recovery rates.
It's a long way away.
It's a long way away.
Yeah, but you're also quite big into other industries, aren't you, as well? So although that's obviously had an impact, you've probably picked up in other areas, like other machine tool companies have adapted.
For sure. The transport and industrial sector has remained buoyant, particularly with agriculture and earth moving equipment, and the energy sector is good. That there's a lot of emphasis on zero carbon footprint and renewables, so there's a lot of activity in those markets, and of course the medical industry as well is
well, it's interesting you say that, because when you look at, I've known Starrag for coming up 30 years now, and obviously how the group has developed with obviously Droop and Rhyme, for instance, and you've got Boomertick. Absolutely two spectrums on different scales. You've got Droop and Rhyme, I think there was one machine that we was actually having an interview on that could hold up to 350 tonnes with a gantry mill, if I remember rightly. And then you've got the Boomertick machines, which are very much small parts, medical, watchmaking, up to 15 axis.
Well, up to 39 axis in total. So we can produce watch links in just a few seconds. We produce all the internal watches. We make gears in one setup. So we can engrave the head of a pin if you want to talk about small parts.
Well, sort of enlighten us for those that listen to the podcast and maybe don't watch some of our stuff on YouTube and maybe don't know much about Starrag. Before we get onto the H65, the new Heckert machine, perhaps just give us a quick overview of the group and how it works.
Well, we're very pigeonholed. So you said earlier aerospace. People that know us in aerospace think of us just in aerospace. But we're a broad company. As you said, we micro machine up to 350 tonne, and these components could be 20 metres long or more. So we focus on sectors. Transport and industrial is a key sector for us. Aerospace and energy is a key sector for us. Precision parts such as watchmaking, medical, jig boring type applications is another key area for us. And within those sectors, we have a high level of expertise on specific types of components. Could be blades or blisks, for example, in the aero engine sector. So we try and be the best at something rather than be just a general machine.
What I think is interesting there is you've told us about the the application side and what the machines that you supply, create and make. But I'm also interested in these brands of machines. So from that side, what machines are available within the group?
Well, firstly, applications is where we come from. We deliver solutions to customers. We don't just sell machines. And it's a bit of a cliche, but it really is what we do. So the engineering team is bigger than the sales team.
Well, that's why your title here is Sales and Applications Engineering Director, isn't it?
For sure. We wanted to bring the two divisions together so that they work very much in parallel. And our sales process is an application solutions process. So for the brands, as you just asked me for there, we actually have 10 brands in the group. Starrag is the name of the group, and Starrag is a brand in its own right. But then we have a number of other brands going through the range of different machines and solutions. And they're typically made in different plants, mostly around Europe.
So what are they?
Well, you've got Starrag, you've got Heckert, you've got Boomertech, you've got SIP, you've got Droop and Rhine, you've got Doris, you've got EcoSpeed, you've got, did I say Heckert, you've got TTL. I apologise if I've missed some to my colleagues.
I think there's only one on that list that we haven't been to on MTDCNC, which is the Boomertech factory. I think that's that's the one that we couldn't get to. But over the years, we've been to Droop and Rhine at Bielefeld, for instance, and obviously Chemnitz. When you walk around Chemnitz, the size of the machines and the types of machines, but also the spindle technology that you manufacture there as well. Complete solution.
It's a complete solution, and it's all designed and developed in-house around specific customers' applications.
When you talk about these factories, I can't wait to get back on that plane and go over to these places and start seeing some of this kit being made again. It's certainly been starved of that in the last 16 or 18 months. But what that hasn't stopped, Lee, is the development of and the installation of these Heckert H65 machines, the theme very much of this podcast today. So talk us through this Heckert H65 machine and why it's been introduced.
Well, firstly, the H65 and H60, as we spoke about this morning, are the 7th and 8th machines launched in the last 3 years from Heckert as part of a new range of products. And they're a very compact machine. So the H65 is about 40% less floor space than its predecessor.
Horizontal machining centre.
All horizontal. So it's a horizontal 4-axis machine centre, twin pallet. It's got 1.5 ton table load on a 630 by 500 pallet. So it's got very heavy weight capacity, so you can put big fixtures on, you can multi-load the fixtures with lots of different components.
What's the maximum size, Lee? What's the maximum size of the weight of the component?
Well, you can put 1.5 tons on the table, so you could put one component at 1.5 tons, or you could put a large tombstone fixture, for example, hydraulic type fixture with multiple parts on it. So it's all about high productivity. So it's we have the H60 range, which is a HSK 63 spindle, which is high speed for aluminium, or we have a sort of lower speed 10,000 rev higher power option, and then the beast that we spoke of this morning was the H65, which is just a workhorse. It's just a heavy duty compact machine.
And well, that we did do a live broadcast this morning and are doing one this afternoon as well. So that is on our YouTube channel if you want to be able to see this machine and some of the animations and the graphics that went along with it. But this as a machine, I mean, it's not your first venture into 4-axis horizontal machining centres. So how does it differ from the others, Lee?
Well, Heckert's DNA is horizontal machining centres, whether they be 4-axis or 5-axis, and that 5th axis can be in the trunnion or it can be on the head, as you've seen, Mark, with the DBF U-axis sliding head. So, typical markets would be transport, industrial markets, oil and gas maybe, but also aerospace and other markets as well. And as I said earlier, it's all about productivity. It's all about being able to produce the biggest, fastest, deepest cut effectively and then be able to keep feeding parts up to that spindle.
Well, one thing that your colleagues named the event, everybody's saying it's lightning quick. When you say lightning quick, how quick really is it?
Well, the traverse speeds are 80 metres. So that could be a feed rate or it could be a rapid rate. And the table rotates at 80 revs, but it's also the acceleration and deceleration rates and the jerk factors have got very high settings as well. I don't know the numbers, but the positional and the contouring rates are extremely fast. So if you've got the right spindle and you're using the right tool, there's nothing in the machine that limits the process
So
time.
the only problem you're going to get then is swarf.
Well, swarf's not a problem either, Mark, because the machine's like, the designers won't thank me for this, but the machine is like a big bathtub, if you can imagine that. The swarf drops into the bottom of the tub and there's a huge conveyor takes it away. So if you look at a lot of competitors' machines, they'll have these small spiral type swarf conveyors. You're limited to how many chips you can get down those pipes, if you like, at the end of those spirals. With us, it just drops into the bottom of the machine and it's taken away. So you're taking all the heat away as well as all the waste.
What about comparing the machine, maybe not necessarily directly to another model, another brand, but you talk about the speed, the metal removal speed. I suppose there's things like the tool change time, indexing. Are these all lots of quick little wins that give you a bigger win overall? Is that where we're talking about cycle time reduction here across a variety of metal types, because you've already said that the different spindles that are available on the machine that was on the live feed this morning. Is that the case? Are you saying that this machine, compared to some of these others in the market, is just faster?
It's just faster. Everything has to be faster, because if you've got one broken link in the chain, then the whole process is slow. So the spindle, as Robert said on the web thing this morning, the 20,000 rev spindle goes from 0 to 20,000 revs in less than a second and decelerates in less than a second. The tool change time is phenomenally fast. We can even handle up to 50 kilo tools in this fast tool changer. The chip to chip time is very fast. The contouring rates of the machine are very fast. And the pallet change is very fast. So as long as you can feed the machine with parts, whether that be manually or whether it be overhead gantry or an FMS pallet type system, then you're going to have a very, very productive machine that makes you lots of money.
Okay, but when you start moving things around much quicker, like, when he starts moving around the football court or the badminton court, as he prefers, things start to sometimes go wrong, knee joints go, hip joints and all the rest
I'm
of
not
it.
that old.
But where are, when you start moving at these really dynamic high jerk rates that you're talking about, is there any weaknesses that can come into play? I mean, not just with the structure and the strength of the machine, maintaining tolerances, but things like additional tool wear and stuff like that. Do these become factors in the manufacturing process, and how do you cope with them?
Well, they all become factors, Paul, and you have to start from the ground up. So the foundation is important for a start, and the way that we fix the machine to the foundation is very important. We use special materials within the machine base itself and the column itself. We sit the table on a bridge and we drive the table with 2 ball screws, and we've got direct measuring systems on all axes. And then if you look straight down the machine and straight down the spindle, you notice that the machine's completely thermosymmetrical. So as and when it does change in temperature, it grows uniformly in all directions. It doesn't twist, as you see with different options and different designs. So the whole thing's been thought about from scratch, discussed with customers. What do you want? What do you want for your business? And we've come up with a very small footprint, but very capable machine.
And I think the great thing with today is that I had the opportunity to speak to one of your first customers in the Netherlands, Stork Turbo Blades. Obviously, they are using the machine for turbo blades in different sectors, and they are absolutely over the moon. But what I find it very interesting is that you get all this information, you make it as quick as you can, and it's still 40% smaller than the predecessing range. It's pretty impressive, really, isn't it?
It's pretty impressive. I mean, we've got a number of the HEC machines, which are still available in the UK market, and they are beasts. They eat parts for breakfast, whether they be huge titanium structure parts for aerospace or cast iron steel type parts for other sectors. And this machine will do the same thing. There's no compromise on what its capability is, but customers are always looking for more space in the workshops. They're looking to get more machines in. They don't want to build another building. They want to get more output from per square metre, if you like, and that's really what we focused on.
Now, just one more question on the actual machine, and then I want to get into some more detail about the application, and also let's talk about something a little bit broader, how we're seeing the introduction of what you'd class as real premium machine tools going into more job shop environments, which is, I know, part of a message that we're trying to, or Starrag are trying to put across here. So that will be interesting to find out how and what you're doing on that front, Lee. But one more thing, do you have like a box-in-box construction on your spindle? Is that the type of way your horizontal works as well?
Well, the spindle itself sits in a column. It's a fabricated column that's FEA designed, and the spindle is supported by a hydraulic counterbalance. So there's zero weight on the spindle. So if you do spindle orbits, you usually get a deviation as you cross from X to Y axis, for example. We don't get that, or we get absolute minimum to the micron.
So what does that do? Less wear on the?
It's less wear on the machine. It means the whole machine itself is more dynamic. So the spindle's floating, if you like, and it also helps with accuracy. So in all axes, we've got an extremely accurate machine here. So there's sub 6 micron accuracy on all the range. So also being thermosymmetrical, as I said earlier, means we're tackling the problems associated with heat as well. The limited amount of heat that we get, because most of it goes down the swarf conveyor. So when you as we do, when we challenge our colleagues in Chemnitz, the answers that they've come back with on these new ranges of machines have been very comprehensive, very impressive. They've not left any stone unturned or cut any costs. Yet the machines are still.
So who's it for?
Well, it's a great question, that, because if you look at our customer base, we're predominantly selling into OEMs in different sectors, or say tier 1 type suppliers, and often we sell with a lot of automation, and we're a real systems integrator company, not just a machine tool company. But this machine for me is for everybody, Paul, and I think if you're a small subcontractor, I was saying to Mark earlier, we don't get the phone call. You know the companies that get the phone calls. We want a horizontal. We want it on this delivery. We're not going to phone Starrag. They'll be too expensive and too long on delivery. That's not the case. So really, we only have a very, very small sales team compared to others. We really respond to applications, we respond to products, and we respond to customer demands. And, if people asked us the question, what would this cost? When's it? Can you hit the delivery, and do you offer all these options? I think the answers are all going to be yes.
Now, this is, obviously a live launch worldwide. That's why we're doing a 10 o'clock for, the UK, so European markets, but also for the US market a little bit later on. When you look at the market, I'm going to take it from my own personal view of speaking to engineers, and I think Paul may agree with me, is that why not have a 5-axis? Where's the argument there from Starrag, Lee?
Well, you can have a 5-axis, Mark. It's just a different machine. But what we're launching here is a 4-axis. So people often say to me, I want a 5-axis machine. When you look at the job, it's not a 5-axis job, it's a 4-axis job. And they'll say, I'm going to future-proof. And then 5 years later, they're producing the same job on the same 5-axis machine that's broken a few times because you're trying to drive 5-axis when you don't need 5 axes. So the fewer the axes, the fewer the potential problems. A 5-axis machine, typically less rigid than an equivalent 4-axis machine, because you've got an axis less, of course. And a 4-axis machine is a lower investment. So if you can buy a machine for less money, drive it harder, then it's going to make you more profit.
I'm looking at this in a slightly different way, and I will be interested to see whether you're seeing this, Lee, because as good as the Heckert H65 or these new models are, I think there's got to be an appetite and a demand in the market, and a change of thinking as to how you're going to make parts. And I think I've seen in the last 2 years the adoption of this more horizontal machining centre, whether it be twin pallet or either 10 pallet pool or however, whatever it might be. I've seen engineers begin to install these machines and replace several vertical machining centres in their machine shops for a few reasons. One of which, they want to automate, they want less operator intervention. They've had problems with COVID, as everybody has, and staff not being able to come to site. The spindle needs to keep going. Secondly, floor space. If you can move 3 or 4 machines and do the same work with one, that can only be a bonus, because it means you can get another one of those machines in a later date. They're just some areas. And also, when you're making parts on one machine, you've not got to move it from one VMC to another VMC to another VMC, damage the part, making accuracies on the component. Everything is done in one environment. So I think the introduction of this machine is quite pertinent in time. And I can see engineers now, certainly in the ongoing, looking at different strategies, because it's about the machining strategy in order to keep. That's the thing you said this morning, Lee. You're only making money when that spindle's cutting, and there is too many machines out there as we speak now that the doors will be open, the guy will be inside it, he'll be lifting a part out, he'll be putting a part back in, he'll be blowing the swarf off, he'll be doing all the things that he thinks are adding value to the making of that part, but they're not. They're just interrupting that spindle from going. Bit of a rant, but would you agree?
Do you feel better for that now?
I just said you're a bit of a mind reader, but no, I think the key for me is these machines are highly productive, but they don't have to be for high volume manufacture. If you can look at the UK market's full of vertical machines. Look elsewhere in Europe, and machine shops are full of horizontal machines. And when you look at the physics of them, a horizontal machine, it just stacks up. Everything falls away from the tool. It doesn't fall onto the job, it falls down, it's away. It's faster, it's more rigid, it's more productive. But if you can set the process up in the machine shop so that you keep the spindle running, it can be series of one-offs with multiple setups on cubes, it can be one part on the fixture, whatever. Just keep it moving.
You say you got 2 pallets, and you mentioned in the live broadcast that they're interchangeable, obviously depending on the site. But are these machines, or the H65, automated or automation ready?
Yes, they are automation ready. When you purchase a machine, you need to stipulate whether it's going to be manually loaded or whether you want it to be plugged into an FMS system or future-proofed for. So you may want automatic doors on the machine. Now, some companies have automatic doors because they like to see when the machine's stopped. The doors are open, the machine's stopped. They're not looking up at the lights flashing. This is part of the conversation process we have with customers when we start looking at a machine and what do they really need and what does this option mean to them in value. It's not just a cost. The options are there for a reason. If you select the right options, you'll get money back from purchasing them. They're not there just to make the machine price higher.
I think the cost of the machine, and I'm not buying one, so I understand people that are going to be shouting at the radio or wherever they're listening to this at the moment. I don't think the cost of the machine is the thing that people should be thinking. It's about what you're going to make from having that spindle continually running and making the parts securely and accurately. And one of the things that I've come across quite a lot with lower technology automation is people have said to me, do you know what? I'm just going to use this machine overnight for roughing because I don't trust it. I don't trust it to machine with intolerance, with temperature changes, tool wear and all the rest of it overnight. And I think, well, that's not right in some ways, is it? Because if you buy a machine that you want to run lights out, you want it to run lights out, doing all of the operations, not just the more simple ones. And I'm assuming here with a Heckert machine, with all the things you mentioned, it wouldn't matter whether you're roughing, finishing, boring, drilling, threading, whatever. You could do that anytime, any place.
So actually, it's a little bit like your bicycle then, isn't it? You've got a battery in it.
Yes.
You say that you haven't, but you have.
I go faster at night than I do in the day.
I don't use mine at night at all. I would be horrified if any of my customers turned around and said, we only rough at night. I really would be, because you can produce complete components all the time. I would say you need to maintain your machine, and you need an annual service. We also offer a service system where you just pay a fixed monthly fee, so that there's no hidden costs, if you like. Your service costs are guaranteed. So all you need to do is fill the machine full of parts, keep it running, and you know that every shift, every day, every week, every month, you know your complete costs of your machine. And that's how confident we are.
And that's another thing you've addressed, which I certainly speak to engineers. I wish the control panel was bigger, and that's something that you have addressed. And I'm not saying that against any of your machines, but generally a lot of engineers just say, I wish it was a little bit easier to use, a little bit larger. And you've addressed that with this machine, haven't you?
Well, you have. I mean, I'm working at home a lot at the moment because of COVID, and I've got 2 screens set up on my desk. I can't work without them now. And when I look at these new control systems we've put on the machines, the HMI, specifically designed for the user, the screen is a flat screen, it's splittable, so you've got your normal Siemens or Fanuc or whatever functions on one side. On the other side, you've got all your setup information. It could be your maintenance information. It could be anything that you want to use yourself on the machine. You could even play games, but we're not supposed to say that. You can force information down from management, from other systems into the machine, all your scheduling and everything else. So it really is, it's a computer in a computer on the machine. So, it's 21st century stuff.
You don't see many companies, and I might be sticking my neck out here, that buy Starrag products and go bust. You don't see many of these machines going into places and then coming out. I mean, and the reason I go down this path is because, and you must have a calculation, a spreadsheet thing, or however it works when you talk about return on investment, an OEE. There must be something that one of these smaller SME companies could come to you with and say, okay, well, guys, show me. All right, let's not talk about exactly how much the machine costs in hundreds of thousands of pounds. Can you break it down to me as to how I'm going to see a significant increase in business and throughput and ultimately profit by having one of your machines? Are these calculations you can do easily?
Well, this is the conversation we typically have with people. If somebody comes and says, give us a price for a whatever, we just know we're being used as a pricing exercise. If somebody says, here's a component, we're looking at this component, we think we can win this contract for the next 10 years, can you come and help us? How long is it going to take us? What's this part going to cost? What's the investment going to be? What's the return on investment? What are the maintenance costs through the next 5-10 years, etc., etc.? We can really give a good cost per part indicator, and that's where companies make the profit. Don't buy a machine and take a risk.
But I think that's even more important when you've got a multiple variety of parts, because if you can have a machine and you've got a 10-year contract, that's great. That's dreamland, isn't it? People want that. But that modern industry is moving more away from that. If you could have, be able to present to someone, look, well, there's a 50 off there and a 300 off there and a 600 off there, and on that 600 off, we're going to save you this. On that, there becomes a theme, and people will think, hang on a minute, pretty much every part I put on this machine, I'm going to make faster than I was doing before.
You should do. It's very unusual.
I know it's application. But
well, again, it goes back to the applications theme. But somebody might come to us and they'll say, well, we're making these in an hour. It's not unusual for us to say, well, we'll make them in 15 minutes or half an hour or something. They're not just 5% savings. Often they're very significant savings. But that's more than just selling a machine. That's selling a complete engineering solution, and that's the way you hold the part, the way you cut the part, using the right tools, programming the part the right way. And some people get nervous of this. The smaller companies don't like being advised in this way sometimes because they feel like they're not doing the job properly, and that's not the case at all.
But that's changing, Lee, isn't it? Because, over the years I've known Starrag, and, you've taken me around some key clients like Boeing up in Sheffield, the AMRC, for instance, you've got machines in there, and other blue chip companies that we can't talk about. But we are discussing about getting into more general subcontractors, because a lot of these subcontractors, younger decision makers are coming in, or even their clients are pushing them to actually make a change. And how many times, Paul, do we actually go into an end user these days and they say, well, I didn't think I could afford one, but I could?
I think that is apparent across a whole myriad of conversations, and with respect, about automation and about efficiency and about uptime and about spindle, whether that be Starrag or they're talking about trying to get more out of their spindles, and I don't think they were so much 2 and 3 years ago. And I think that's where I think you're right, Mark. I think you will see more of these, and will be great for Starrag. You'll see more of these machines for a few reasons, not just because of what I'm saying, but because of the quality of the machine entering into the marketplace, and people should be looking at them.
Just to add to that, though, Paul, automation doesn't have to be a huge multi-pallet system or overhead gantries. Automation is 2 pallets. And if you load those 2 pallets efficiently, and you have a guy or a girl loading them properly and maybe running several machines, then you've got automation, and it's not cost you anything. It's off the shelf.
Especially if the pallets can take as much weight as you're saying, so you can really present a lot of, as Gio would say, present more parts to the spindle on a pallet.
He likes that one, doesn't he? It's a USP for Gio, isn't it? But what's quite interesting about the H65, Lee, is that it is designed to actually cut very hard materials and very soft materials, because is it 7 different spindle ranges that you can actually offer?
There are 7 different spindle ranges, and the speed ranges on this particular product from 10,000 up to 20,000. So there's different power torque ratios, different spindle sizes, and different rates of acceleration and deceleration. So we've tried to cover all eventualities without having too many different options available, but all in this same small footprint.
Where can people see these machines, Lee?
Well, they can come over to Chemnitz anytime. Of course, we've got issues with COVID. We don't have a particular machine of this exact model in the UK, but we do have similar other machines that we can take people to in the UK. So there are machines available should people want to see them.
Well, saying that, you can watch our live event again. Obviously, it's pre-recorded. It's on YouTube. It's on it'll be on the MTDCNC site as well. And there's a great video in that where your colleagues in Germany not only ask questions, from the audience, but also there's a great video about why this machine from some of your colleagues in Chemnitz.
Which I think, with respect to both of you, did a fantastic job on the live show this morning, and this podcast's been great to host as well. People do listen and watch things on different platforms, so it's always important to cover all of our bases. Lee, thank you very much for joining us today, and good luck with this afternoon's stream as well. And as Mark correctly said, you can find the streams that were shot today on our YouTube channel and on LinkedIn and across all social platforms. Mark, thank you for joining us too. And that's it for this week's MTDCNC podcast. Don't forget to join us next week for another edition.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.